Hello, BookTube. Do I need to say anything else? I think you kind of all know my formula by now. Oh, that's lovely. But if you're new to my channel, I always feel it's important to give everybody a good minute and a half. Oh, listen to that. Of what I call landscape therapy. Just a moment with trees and water and dirt. Not much else. Just to get us, right, not to get, to give, just to give you the peace and the joy of it. And then after a little while, I start barging in with talking. Sorry about that. Hello, BookTube. Welcome to this, the last in the series that we have been doing, looking at books we did not finish, or as they say in BookTube world, DNF. In this video, I'm mostly going to be telling on myself, right? I want to talk about 3 books that I did not finish. These were books that I started more than once, failed more than once to complete, but when I finally did commit and finish them, those were the books that became more important to me than sleep. And they are books I would definitely recommend to others now. These stories will go in chronological order, so that's why we have a picture here of Vancouver Harbour, because this is the city where I grew up. I need you to cast your mind back, if you can, to the 1970s. If you were around then, you will recall that there was a flurry of revived enthusiasm for this series of books, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. My high school, everybody was talking about it. It must have been advertised on television or something, because I know I was surprised at that Christmas, I think, 76, to receive this box set, these 3 paperbacks. Recognize the cover art. Also, my cousin, she received the same set. Well, she finished them all off in like 2 weeks. And then, of course, she was on at me because we always talked about books together. So she wanted to know, what did I think of them? Had I started them? Well, I couldn't get beyond Bilbo Baggins' birthday party. I don't know what the problem was. I don't like parties, but I don't think that would explain it. Well, then, you see, it got worse. My father decided he was going to read Tolkien. Now, my father was the kind of reader who, when he decides he's going to read an author, he's going to read that author. So he read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion, all in one continuous stream of reading. And then, of course, he was on at me. What did I think of the book? Why hadn't I started the book? Well, when was I going to get started on the book? And then my mother, who wasn't a reader, but had forked out the money for that box set, she was wondering, should she have got me something a bit more practical for Christmas, not just some silly books? And that was too much. I thought, that's almost an insult to my pride. So I thought, okay, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get past Bilbo Baggins' birthday party. And somewhere in the middle of the Fellowship of the Ring, I don't remember where, I don't even remember what it was that changed my mind, but suddenly I was in, and then I was reading nonstop, and I can remember staying up till 3 a.m. on a school night just so that I could finally get to the end of Book 3, The Return of the King. And I had no regrets looking back, none whatsoever. Okay, the second book that I DNF to start with is this one, Captain Corelli's Mandolin by Louis de Bernier. Came out in 1994. It was all the rage. Everyone was talking about it, and the cover art was so beautiful, so I had to buy it. And of course, I just assumed I'd love it. And chapter 1 was about this old man who gets a dried pea trapped in his ear canal. Chapter 2 is Mussolini ranting at his son-in-law. And I think chapter 3, some soldiers talking to each other. They're camped out on a mountain. It just, I thought, where's this guy named Corelli? Has some kind of madman been given the first 3 chapters to write? You know, when does it start to make any sense? And I didn't carry on with it. And then a work colleague shocked me by confessing that she had faked a migraine headache at her own dinner party. Like, seriously, like, she'd set the date, she'd invited her best friends, she'd cooked the food, and then of course she'd started the book not thinking it would matter, and loved it so much that she was willing to deceive her friends to sneak upstairs and finish this book. And I thought, whoa, I have never wanted to deceive real friends to finish a book. So I thought, okay, I'll give it another shot, because now I know there must be something worth reading for, and there was. It's a fantastic story. And in fact, I checked on the BBC's list of 100 books to read before you die, Captain Corelli's Mandolin is number 38. I definitely think it deserves its place there. Okay, now we need some dogwood. This is the provincial flower of British Columbia, and it's so beautiful when it blooms in the spring. And it's a lovely backdrop to the 3rd book I did not finish. Oh God, wait for it. Here we go. Yeah, I know. Austen fans, you're going to think, what was your problem? I don't know. I could not warm to the Bennet family or to Elizabeth at first. But, I mean, it's Jane Austen, right? You don't argue, you just read it. So I looked for ways to make myself read the book. I had a temporary job as an exam invigilator, right? So you're stuck in a room for 3 hours. You have to be quiet. So I brought only a copy of Pride and Prejudice into the room with me, thinking, there, if I give myself no other entertainment, I will get through it. Well, I tell you what, I still preferred to stare at the walls, because after a third of the way in, I just thought, I can't bear this torture anymore. I know, I can hear you all screaming. 5 years later, I signed up to study for my Bachelor of Arts in English Literature. Well, of course, what was required reading? In fact, what was required reading and had an assigned essay? Yeah. Okay, so maybe it was because I close read the book, I don't know, but suddenly it was like, where did this different book come from? Don't remember this one. It could have been my tutor as well. She was really enthusiastic about Austen, and you know, there's teachers, they just have a knack, don't they? Their enthusiasm is like an infectious disease, and everybody comes down with it. I think it was a lot like that too. Herewith endeth today's lesson, fellow readers. DNF may not be the end. Maybe it shouldn't be. I mean, I'm going to hold my hand up and say, I learned my lesson. I learned that if there's enough consensus saying that the book is worth reading, it usually is worth reading, even if I don't feel that way when I get started. Now, I did mention, didn't I, in the very first coffee break video in this series, that I couldn't remember a book that I'd never finished. But I also have said, haven't I, about how reliable my memory isn't. Okay, so I went and looked up the BBC's 100 books to read before you die, and sure enough, I found 3 titles listed, which I know I've started and never finished, and they are these: Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, Watership Down by Richard Adams, and Dune by Frank Herbert. I know you're all screaming at me, and you're right. I don't normally make TBR lists, but I am going to commit to reading these books. I've downloaded Wind in the Willows already, read the first chapter, and sure enough, I'm like, what's this book? I don't remember this book. So I'm already having a different, different eyes are seeing it. But I won't say more. I'll save that for the review. And speaking of reviews, last night I finished Percival Everett's Erasure. And oh my God, my brain is buzzing with thoughts. So look out for a review on that in a few days' time. Hope this series has been helpful. Thanks a lot, BookTube, for joining me, and I hope that you'll look up the next video, which will be coming out very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.